gentlemen, welcome back to the Roker Report, episode 23. Yes, Damien is missing in action. He's got the sniffles. Poor lad, probably having a bath and a couple of other little bits and bobs to try and get himself right for next week. I'm joined this week by Walshy. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Gav, how are you, pal?
Could be better. Another defeat, but I'm getting used to it. So
Same old. Cal, How are you, pal?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, good. How are you?
Not too shabby. James, how are you, mate?
Been better, let's be honest. I think we all have.
Been better. I think that's kind of going to sum up the life of a man. Anyway, general thoughts from yesterday's game. An away defeat to Everton, lost 2-0. Any positives at all to take away from the game? Jim, we're going to start with you, mate. Any positives at all to take away from the game?
I don't think so. Well, Jordan Pickford's back. Maybe that's probably where it ends, if I'm honest. I thought it was... There was a few players on the pitch who were just utterly appalling, Seb Larsson being one. I thought Fabio Verini, I'm just sick of him at the moment. He seemed to be in a bit of a strop. He doesn't track very well. Seb Larsson was absolutely abysmal. I just don't think he offers absolutely nothing. Other than that, I actually think we were just outclassed by a really, really good Everton side. I mean, they're in good form. They look just a class act. And Lukaku, I mean, for their second goal, he's just an absolute beast. I think Oviedo's, he didn't have the best of games, but Lukaku's just an absolute beast. We probably did well just to keep it at 2, if I'm honest.
It's interesting because I agree in a way, but Gav, I want to know what you think. Surely, given Everton 60% of the ball, regardless if it's home or away, if it's your day or it's not your day, if your tactics aren't spot on, surely giving a team 60% of possession in the Premier League's unforgivable, isn't it, Gav?
No, it's not good enough. To be honest with you, I think when it comes down to the nitty gritty and which teams are going to stay up, we just don't do enough against the teams who are expected to beat us. Like, if I'm making any sense, what I mean by that is, obviously nobody expected Sunderland to take something from the game. A point would have been a great result, but what you do have to do is just give that a little bit extra. You've got to match them all over the pitch. You've got to match them in the battle. And I'm not saying that there was a lack of effort, because I do think the try, I just don't think it's enough. There's nobody imparting themselves. There's nobody marauding around the pitch trying to G the players up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if sold out away followings and 40,000 fans in home games isn't enough to inspire a player or a group of players to give a little bit more when the chips are down. We're bottom of the league, remember. We're not mid-table where we can afford to have a run of games where we aren't able to pick points up. We actually really do need to start winning games. My next game's against Manchester City, so getting something out of the Everton game was paramount. And if we were going to lose, it had to be at least an inspiring performance, which gave us some hope that there was going to be something different offered down the line. I just think that we're not seeing. Obviously, the Palace game seems like more and more of a fluke, doesn't it? Really, and I think that this result in particular, it really does cast a shadow. I don't feel confident at all about our chances, because we have to turn up. At least we have to give our all. We have to battle. We have to at least give the opposition something to think about. Like, Everton aren't going to be rolled over. They're a brilliant team. They have far better players than what we've got. But at least show that you want to win, or you at least give that little extra, which is going to push the team further. Because I know Defoe hit the bar, but regardless of that chance, I don't think we did a great deal. And for me, that's not enough when you're bottom of the league. You have to be more than that. You have to do more than that. We just like Jim said before, Barini is just awful, and I don't think he's enjoying himself. And what on earth is he doing on the pitch? You know what I mean? He just doesn't look interested. He's not involved. It's not the same Fabio Barini that we saw towards the end of last season, who looked pretty pissed off from being left out of the team, and showed Sam Allardyce why he needed to be playing more games with that goal that he got against Palace, and when he ran across to the manager and was like, look, that's what I offer you. Mm-hmm. It's a different guy altogether. He just doesn't want to be here. And then I've kind of been questioning what I actually want out of a Sunderland player since the result, because I've always said that all I want to see from a Sunderland player is 100% effort. That's all we ask. And yet Seb Larsson puts 100% in every week, and I still cannot stand watching the guy play for us.
I agree.
And I feel, and it's kind of making us, I guess, re-figure out what I want from these players, because at the minute that's not enough. It's not enough, and the results are starting to reflect that, because there's 3, 4, 5 players there who give their all every week, and they're patently not good enough.
Yeah, I really want to know what Walshy thinks about this. I mean, Gav kind of hinted on the topic, and in fact I've been watching Premier League Passions again recently, and that coupled with the NBCSN documentary, the Unity is Strength and all that going on. Walshy, do you reckon there's something we need to achieve with the squad that's greater than just running around like a bunch of headless chickens? Is that effort, or is there something else that we need to find?
I want to be a bit positive.
Ooh.
Since everyone's put the doom and gloom on everything. I expected us to get beat, and when you were saying about 60% possession doesn't really mean anything. I was watching the Southampton Man United game, and Gary Neville was going on at length, where he kept mentioning moments in games. It's like you can get battered all game, but you just need moments in games. And yesterday, had Defoe's chance gone in, we'd all be sitting back, 20% possession or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But we got a 1-1 draw. And this, I understand what you mean, like running around like those chickens. This thing of like effort and all that, it's just not a case of effort. We put the effort. It's Seb Larsson puts the effort in, but it's just rubbish. That's the difference. It's like Everton put the effort in, but it makes it, they're just better than us. Yeah. It's not a case you can run around all you like, and you can be committed, you can thump the badge or whatever, but you're rubbish. Dean Whitehead thumped the badge and all that, and Liam Lawrence did, like Gary Breen thumped the badge, but they're rubbish. It's just, there's a major difference between us and a team like Everton. They're just much better. You saw that the lad Davis they've got in midfield. Mm-hmm. He's about 14. Well, he looks like he's been backpacking around Australia all, but he's just much better.
Yeah.
And you put him up against Seb Larsson, 32, whatever how old he is, bags of experience, playing the Premier League for donkey's years, and this lad's 18, he's already streets ahead of him.
I know.
And it's not just because he runs around, it's because he knows how to play a game of football. He doesn't just play aimless passes, he looks up.
Yeah. He
sees where the players are. It's the same when he's coupled with Barkley. There was a second half, and Barkley was going forward. The Everton fans are getting a bit frustrated with him because he slowed the game down. But he just played this beautiful ball to Lukaku, and Pickford had to make a very good save. And they want him to run around like an headless chicken, gliding into tackles and all that. But he's just a better footballer. He's a better footballer than Seb Larsson. They're just better footballers. And I'm not... the result was disappointing, but it wasn't like... Did anyone actually think we were going to roll Everton over or get anything out of it? I didn't.
It's interesting because I think you're totally right. Like, Tom Davis was absolutely superb yesterday. That ball, the crossfield ball for the first goal was absolutely superb. And when you're coming up with this idea of him and Ross Barkley, who, it's worth mentioning at this point, they're both Everton trainees who've gone through the academy and have ended up as this really exciting midfield duo. I have a question for Callum. We've got a couple of Twitter questions, and it'll be interesting to see how Callum's unique brand of pessimistic optimism comes in on this. One of the questions was from Danny D, called Echo3030. He said, why was Larsson not subbed off? Which is an interesting question. And then Phil, SAFC 73, says, how shite does Larsson have to be for Gooch or Honeyman to come back in? Callum, explain.
I think obviously there's a few injuries in central midfield. Catamol and Kirchhoff have been out for a while, and we obviously missed them a lot. As far as I'm aware, I mean, Larsson is a reputably a technical player. Gibson, I've heard, is a technical player. And Dong is a tidy player. I mean, we said it when he first joined how decent his passing completion was compared to the rest of the team. The possession thing, Everton obviously a better team than us, but we should be able to keep the ball better than we did, particularly in the first half. I mean, I'm not arguing that we should have been able to completely overhaul a midfield of Gueye, Davies, and Schneiderlin. I mean, that is an expensively assembled and incredibly, strong midfield that can win the ball back very well. But we didn't help ourselves, and that's been a constant theme throughout the season. I don't think our personnel is significantly worse than someone like West Brom, or like especially in defence as well. I mean, if you look at the personnel, I don't think our team looks that bad. I mean, Januzaj, Barini, both players who've been at big clubs. Like they're again not. Then this isn't an inexpensively assembled squad of pretenders. These are reputable Premier League players and professional footballers. So I think we haven't helped ourselves in that sense, and I think we can't just sort of say Everton are better than us, because there's a lot of teams that are better than Burnley, and Burnley have found a way to beat them. And I don't think our game plan was particularly good. I think maybe a 3-5-2 could have been better, because they've got attacking fullbacks, but they don't have a lot of width in attack because they weren't playing Morales, or and obviously De La Feo's gone out on loan. So in attack, I think they just had Barkley and that young Lookman kid, and so three. Kind of the way we played against Tottenham. They have a narrow attack but attacking fullbacks, and I think maybe a 3-5-2 could have been better. Larsson, he's just past it. There's no other way to say it. His legs look like they're gone. I think someone like Gooch couldn't do any worse. Honeyman's a little bit. I don't think he's got that kind of bite and tenacity that Gooch maybe has. That maybe, because Gooch obviously has a technical side as well. So I think someone like Gooch should be really knocking on the door at least to get a look in.
It is
to this midfield.
It really is, because the other week on Twitter, David Priest and I don't know if it was Darren Holloway or Darren Williams were basically saying, look, now's the time to give the young lads a chance. We're scraping around at the bottom. And you're quite right, Carl, they are reputable players. I mean, Larsson's been with us, 5-6 years? And then we talk about Januzaj, Barini, the pedigree that came with them. So is now the chance, because I know Tom has some pretty strong views on Honeyman, but is now the chance to just throw caution to the wind and say, right, the lads we want to do the job aren't doing it, so we're just going to give the young'uns a chance. It's sink or swim. Tom, what do you reckon?
Strong views on Honeyman, flipping out, mate. Drop me in it there, didn't you? I just don't think he's very good. He's not young. He's 22, 23. He's not like 18 years old. And he's out of contract at the end of the year. He won't, past this season, he won't be playing for Sunderland anymore. He'll be down in the lower leagues. I mean, I'm sure he's a very nice lad and all that, but he's just not very good. And you see it with the difference between him and Gooch. Gooch seems to have much more about him. Yeah. And yeah, you're getting relegated when you're saying chuck the kids in because there's no other point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who else is there. We've got Gooch in midfield, and there's Madger and Azoro. But Azoro's 17 or 18, and I don't really know. I mean, chucking the kids in this point, but it's just throwing in the towel. Then it just seems like you've got no other option. I mean, when we chucked Watmore in, that was only because Dick Advocat had to. Yeah, it was more making a point to the owner, saying this is all I've got left. Yeah, and I remember when we were under Bruce and we had I think we played Wolves or Fulham, and we had a bench that was just full of Bash Street kids, Billy Knott, Ryan Noble. When they come on, the shirts looked a bit too big for him, and they were all. Unfortunately, they were just terrible. So you chuck the kids in, but it could get worse. We could just get panned off teams instead of getting mildly beat.
Now, see the thing with Honeyman, he's not and never has been a central midfielder, even when he was playing with the youth. So I'm not sure why he's now being looked at as one in the Premier League. It's even though he's only coming on towards the end of games there, and obviously he played the full match against Burnley in the Cup. He's never been a central midfielder. He was a number 10 playing for the younger team, you know what I mean? So it just seems a bit strange that he would be expected to be able to play there now. I don't know, obviously Moyes sees him every day and obviously sees something maybe in him. But for me, if you're going to put anybody in that position, it's probably got to be Lyndon Gooch. And I don't really know how fit he is. I know he's been back for a good few weeks now, and he's maybe not had enough game time, so he might not be ready to start, and maybe he just doesn't think he's good enough to start. But when you're watching Seb Larsson play the way like he is at the minute, could he be any worse really in that position? At least he's got a similar amount of energy. I'm not sure. I couldn't really attest for his quality because he hasn't really proven himself at this level as yet. Gucci only really came to the team at the start of the season and played because he had to. But for me, you've got to maybe give him the chance next. I kind of made this point through the week that he's, if anybody, got to be starting games soon. I mean, I don't know how far away Kirchhoff is, but he's probably not as close as we want him to be. I would imagine he's not going to be back for a couple of games yet. And even then, how much is he going to play, He probably only get half or an hour, and then he probably needs a couple of reserve games. So I think really we've got to look at other options. I don't know how far away Rodwell is. If he's fit, he probably plays. But it's just, at the minute, not even just at the minute, I honestly think that a lot of our issues this season in terms of consistency and achieving decent results and grinding out draws and adding goals in other areas of the pitch when Defoe was injured and things like that, I think a lot of it actually comes down to the fact that we never play our strongest or even a decent central midfield, because it changes every week. We've got someone different injured every week. Even at the start of the season, we had the likes of McNair in there with Gooch and Pienaar. Playing Pienaar in central midfield at his age when he's never played there before kind of shows you where we're at. Yeah, and across the entire season, I honestly think that's where our problems have stemmed. If we'd have kept even Kirchhoff fit this season and then had the others rotate around him and Dong flitting off to the African Cup and what have you, then we might have got a few more positive results. I just think that we've had no real standout central midfielder, hang my hat on. We've had no Catamo, we've had no Mvia. Even though Mvia was only here a season, that first half of the season was the only player we had, and it kind of helped, And this season, Dong's been asked to do a bit too much, Yeah.
Do you think Kirchhoff's finished, Gav?
I think he is.
Yeah.
I honestly think that when he's back, it'll not be long before he's injured again, because that's just the way it is. The guy was allowed to leave Bayern Munich for a small fee. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but you don't play for Bayern Munich if you're a bad footballer. Generally, he's obviously a very good footballer, but his fitness issues are very worrying. He's obviously not going to play that long into his 30s. I don't think. I think he's going to be lucky to find a Premier League club after this if he doesn't stay fit. He really needs to hope that this end of the season goes well for him.
It's an awkward situation as well, because I think we're all well aware that his contract runs out the end of this season. So he's a bit of a paradox in the sense that if he does well, great, somebody's going to come in and give him a better deal elsewhere. If he doesn't do well, do we actually want to keep him and hope that we can remedy the issue that's plagued him for the last 2 seasons?
It's
a tricky one, isn't it?
I think if he does play well towards the end of the season, I don't think anyone would come in for him, because they'll have seen the issues we've had with him. They're not going to come in and say, hey, here's 60 grand a week for 3 years. I think if he plays well to the end of the season, we'll probably give him another year, and he'll probably. If I was him, I'd be quite grateful of that. Because if he has a run of games, say about 6-8 games, and we said, all right, well, you proved that. No matter what division we're in, here's another year just to show the faith we've had in you for getting through this. I don't think another team will come jumping in saying, oh, here's whatever. I think he's either just going to leave or we're probably going to give him another contract.
I would agree. So to sum up, awful game. We didn't do very well. there's still a lot to be desired. It's a good point, okay? Because there was a really good debate in the Twitter section between a lad called Johnny R1 Red and J 5000 Watts. Johnny and Johnny, I assume, going at it back and forth. One's asking, is it time for Moyes to be shown the door? How long can we continue with this tactically inept man? We'll come to that question a little bit later on. But then somebody jumped in and said, maybe he just needs to give the younger players a chance, or would that be seen as accepting relegation? And I think that's kind of the question we've teetered between all the way along, and it really is a tightrope situation in that, is it genuinely giving a chance to someone like Lyndon Gooch, or is it saying, we're absolutely crap, we might as well give him a chance and see if he can prove himself next season? So I think maybe it's a moot point, and it's probably best that we move on. But ultimately, difficult decisions facing the club, especially on the back of such a poor performance. Gav, though, you mentioned about Defoe's volley hitting the crossbar. In seasons past, that might have been a talking point, as in a referee might have given it, potentially. However, we have seen video technology in the Prem this season. But today there was some interesting video technology perhaps missing or perhaps required in the Southampton game in the Cup final. Do you want to elaborate on that point a little bit?
It pisses off watching it, and I'm not in any way, favourable towards Southampton. I just don't like seeing a game decided on a misjudgment of a linesman or an official. I just think that, although it was very early on in the game and a lot of football was played after it, obviously, that was a legitimate goal chalked off because the linesman flagged for Bertrand, maybe thought Bertrand was the one who scored. All in all, though, it kind of put Southampton back. They went 2-0 down and ultimately they lost the game. The point being that goal line technology has been fantastic for this sport for me. It's removed something which was it was a constant talking point. It would seem to be every other week that we were talking about a goal that should have been given that went over the line. They found a way to remedy it, and it's been fantastic for football in my eyes. And then you watch the cup final today, and there should be a fifth official who can at least relay back to the referee when the ball's out of play like it was that was a goal, and then it's game on. And that shouldn't just be obviously the cups. That should be every step of football if possible, but at least the Premier League. Yeah. It's not difficult, is it?
I think the problem with football is obviously there's grey areas in a lot of ways with someone can watch a replay 5 times of an offside and sometimes say, oh, we're not sure, maybe not. You can literally have 2 people watching the same video and disagree. Same with tackling, 2-footed tackles, fair tackles. Did he mean the elbow? Did he not mean the elbow? So these are things where if you introduce technology for everything or for a lot of things, then you kind of spoil the debate that circulates around the game. That's so good. After the game, you can all have this massive discussion about what's an interpretation of a rule, what's acceptable in football, but with something like that, where it's clear as day if you watch a replay that he's onside. I think you can have. I don't see why they don't do the kind of tennis system where you maybe have 2 challenges or 3 challenges or something like that, and if you run them out, It's your own fault. Yeah. But if you can challenge and you can say, right, I want to send that to a video ref. If it's inconclusive, and the referee's decision on the pitch stands. If it's conclusive, then you've used one of your challenges and you get the right decision. And then you don't have constant challenges for absolutely everything all the time. I don't see why they can't do that, but it took so long to get video technology in for goal line technology, and even some major parts of football haven't even introduced it yet.
Yeah.
So football is very much a gradual fight to kind of get common sense introduced at the highest levels of the game, and this will be no different. This will rumble on for years to come, I'm sure.
Talking about technology, the finalists, one of the finalists today, Southampton, have a really interesting sort of tidbit with technology, and I actually think this links nicely into another question for Callum, because I know he has also quite strong views on this. Southampton today, they've sold £185 million worth of players across the last 3 seasons. They've lost 2 very, very good managers in Pochettino and Koeman, and yet still they seem to better themselves year after year. You could argue this year with Puel. I mean, they're in 12th or 13th after results this weekend without their own game in the league. But they made it to a cup final, and they're not going to be scrapping around the relegation zone. It's going to be another season where they've got some kind of success going forward. They had a taste of Europe. I'm sure they'll want to be back there. And I actually read an article recently on BBC saying that Les Reed, who's their executive director, he's really big into this idea of Moneyball, and he has developed a system, like a black box system, that basically he can find targets for players who leave. So, for example, they sold Wanyama in the summer. Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg from Bayern Munich was one of the names that was touted around. He's come in. Jody Classy, along that same kind of vein. They just seem to be able to bring in players for reasonable sums and sell them on later at a profit. So one of the questions we had was from another fella called Callum on Twitter, called Callum Edward 5. He said, I disagree with people wanting Moyes out, as it's inevitable we're going to go down. Are we just better off sticking and rebuilding? Callum, coming in on that. Southampton seem to be able to do it. With losing managers, do Sunderland lose a manager? Do Sunderland stick with a manager? How do we rebuild? Thoughts?
I think that this is not the manager that we rebuild with. I've thought that for a while. I think from the moment he came in and started bringing in the kind of people, the kind of players that he said he wanted to bring in, young British, people he knew, and stuff like that. And I just think it's a kind of archaic way to do scouting. And like you said with Southampton, with this Gabbiadini, who's obviously been a massive success there so far, they watched him, I think, upwards of 50 times before they signed him. And so they've clearly been watching him past, when Koeman was there, and now, obviously, Claude Puel's signed him. And I think they've gone and they've got a manager who's willing to work within a system that is clearly working well for them. I think in January we signed, obviously, 3 players, Kone £5 million, and then 6 months later we're getting bids of £25 million for him. Given the history that we have with transfers, particularly with domestic transfers, people like Danny Graham, Jack Rodwell, even back to sort of the likes of Michael Chopra and people like that, I don't understand why the club would stumble on something like what happened in January, where we signed 3 continental players, and then one of them 6 months later is worth 4 or 5 times as much. And then we say, well, actually, we want a new manager who wants to work in a completely different way, so we'll scrap that and we'll go with a system that got us into the financial mess that we were in originally, which was buying Premier League-based players, Premier League experience. And I hate the people who say you need Premier League experience, either as a manager or a player, to be a success in the Premier League. First of all, how do you get experience in the Premier League? You always have to have your first game. You always have to have that first step to that person to take a chance on you. Mm-hmm. And second of all, we see players come in all the time who are instant successes. And even if they're not instant, after a couple of months, they'll start to find their feet. It really does baffle me how people, first of all, can be kind of okay with this plan of David Moyes, because it doesn't seem to me to be based in reality. It seems to me to be based in 1995, and it's not 1995 anymore. It's a different league, it's a different transfer market. You're going to have to pay through the nose for players in the Premier League anyway, and we're broke. That's why we can only afford the cast-offs of some other clubs. And even if we can't afford much, we still go and buy people who he knows instead of going and buying players who he might not know but are better than them. And this is what there's this kind of protection around David Moyes, as though no other manager would have done it any other way, and that no other manager could be expected to do any better than he's doing now. And I think there are several managers who are younger, who would see Sunderland as a step up instead of a step down, who have worked in recent years or currently working in tightly controlled financial restrictions, and who would look at Sunderland and go, now there's a project that I want to do because it'll help me get to the next stage of my career. David Moyes is on his way back down the hill. He's not on his way up. And that, for me, is every time I look at him, I think you don't want to be here. You want to be at Man United or, a big club, and you think you've earned that right, and you're still bitter about it. And now look at you, bottom of the table, working on a shoestring, and you're bitter about it. And for me, he just looks devoid of ideas. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'd be quite happy to be wrong. But I think people are more in hope than anything else that this will work out all right and that he's got any idea about what he's doing. But from what I've seen on the pitch, and he's had plenty of time to get them organised, let alone bring in the players he wants. This, like I said, the personnel of this team is not irredeemable. They're not beyond organisation. And we've seen so much disorganisation, so much capitulation, and he's had such a significant amount of time that I just think, how much longer are we gonna act like this has absolutely nothing to do with him?
So
that's my question.
Quick question for you, Callum. Then you're saying there's several managers out there who younger would see it as a step up. I mean, Sean Dyche in the summer. Sorry, not the summer. Before we went in for Allardyce was a name on everybody's lips. It almost seemed a done deal, and even the summer before. But do you have a name who you could throw into the ring who you think might be a great option?
I wrote a piece for the site in the summer saying that David Moyes I would set his CV aside and call Sean Dyche. And I think even though Burnley are doing well, I think we've got a bit more infrastructure. We might be able to tempt him away. I mean, you never know. I'd like to see us be a bit ambitious and say, well, there's a manager on the up. Let's go and get him while he's got a bit of momentum behind him, and he's proven himself in a job, in building a squad, building a club. So I would like to see us do that. I don't know whether he'd do it. So if not him, if we're insistent on free agents, Gary Rowett from Birmingham, I think did a fantastic job there. It wouldn't be beautiful football. But again, he worked wonders there on a limited budget. And the players are determined to give everything that they have for him. Even people like someone like Chris Hughton. I know he's former Newcastle, but he's done an amazing job at Brighton. These managers are all hungry, looking to prove themselves, looking to get their chance at the Premier League. Obviously, Chris Hughton might be there in a couple of months' time. But this myth that David Moyes is the only guy around, he's the only guy who A, would want this job, and B, would be able to do this job, it's just clearly not true. I don't understand why people would argue that.
Great point, mate. Actually, I was hoping you would say Rowett. I was rolling the dice that you were going to come in with Rowett. Callum touched on a really interesting point, Gav, just about this overhanging dark cloud that no time soon is going to go away is like the financial predicament we find ourselves in. We owe hundreds of millions of pounds, not only to Ella Shaw, we also owe a real significant sum to some real obscure bank called Security Bank Unlimited or something, charge us an absolute fortune in interest every year. Is there any kind of fix, do you think, Gav, with that hanging over our heads?
Not really. It's inevitable that something's going to come to head, isn't it? Obviously this whole staff redundancy situation at the club has brought the topic up again amongst the fans about the financial situation at the club, and people are obviously worried about what this means going forward, not just about the football side of things. And this season in the Premier League, obviously primary concern is that we need to stay up. Everybody knows that. But in terms of what happens off the pitch to the club financially, we are obviously headed somewhere very, very dark, providing we don't do something about it. And obviously that's why Martin Bain's here. He's here to change things. So whether he can do that is another thing. I personally feel that these cost-cutting measures that we're seeing seemingly weekly now are obviously being done because this club is being actively touted around to potential buyers, and it's a lot easier to sell a football club when the books are in order, and that's kind of what Bain's job is. We've had that spelled out to us on numerous occasions. So for me, we have a real tough couple of months coming up, a lot of which is going to depend on the future of the club long term, because if we're a Premier League club, we're a better sale someone else to a foreign owner, for instance, they are much going to prefer to buy Sunderland as a Premier League club as opposed to a Championship club. When you see the money that some of the Championship clubs have been sold for, and then you compare it to how much it would cost to take us off Ellis Short's hands, when you're talking about the debt that he has owed to him essentially by the club, and your owner would probably have to take that on, then it's going to be tough if we're in the Championship, let's be honest. I do feel, though, that this football club has so much potential. We all know it. We've got a fantastic fan base. I don't have to tell anybody this, but we do. We've got a great travelling support. We've got a fantastic stadium, a state-of-the-art academy. You know, everything is here to make this club a success. Obviously, it hasn't worked with this owner. If somebody with ambition who wants to really make a go of this, I think could do great things here. I think Ellis Short's ambition is long gone. That we're kind of seeing that now. The lack of willingness to spend, for instance, is obviously affecting us deeply. And I know obviously we're owed a lot of debt to the owner, and he can only spend so much now. But a new owner with a fresh outlook and somebody who wants to make this club better than it is has to be the priority coming out of this summer.
I totally agree. I think if you look at Ellis Short basically as someone who's come into this club and tried, I genuinely think he's tried to make it a success. However, it's come to the point now where whatever he's done quite simply hasn't been enough. Mismanaged on all levels, ridiculous turnover in staff, both playing staff and backroom staff. You could argue he's put money into the club, but he also wasn't able to install people who were capable of actually taking that money, using it, and progressing the club. So I'm obviously of the opinion that he has to go. But the question I really have for Tom now is, will it be doom and gloom if we go down? Is there any... I mean, I don't want to sound like it's a foregone conclusion, but it's something we have to consider. So, Tom, is there anything at all we can take away from going down that might bring a wry smile to our face?
It is a foregone conclusion, by the way. We are going down. But no, it's not all doom and gloom, because the Championship is perversely quite good. You know, we get to go to all these, post-industrial towns, like, I don't know, we might go to Blackburn again, you know. I've only been to Blackburn when it's been sideways rain. Although I saw us win there once. And then we get to go to places like... I mean, I've never been to Ipswich. Have you been to Ipswich? I've never been to Ipswich. And that's another one to tick off. See that Bobby Robson statue. There's a few good pubs in Ipswich. What else is there? Burton's got a Carlin brewery, so I saw that. Hopefully, and they've got it's terracing at Burton, so there's that. And we might get slapped off teams like, I don't know why Huddersfield mint all of a sudden. Essentially, as a fan, I'm sick of the Premier League. I'm sick of it. I'm bored of it. It's all well and good if you like Southampton or bloody West Brom, who also mint now. But we don't do anything. We don't do anything. We have this. We don't have a derby anymore, unless you count Middlesbrough. We don't have a derby anymore, so there's no joy in beating Newcastle. And all we do is just turn over the same rubbish season every year. I was having a conversation at work the other day with Man United fans and Tottenham fans, and they were saying, we've won like 9 games in a row. So all right, well, we only win 8 games a season. It's like, what's the point of that? We're just bottom. We're hated by everyone in the Premier League. We're hated by everyone on TV. And when it's like Sunderland on the telly, it's great, yeah, great. For me, it'd be quite a refreshing change of going down. I'd like to see us win football matches. Mm-hmm. I don't care who's it against, but that's the joy of football. I don't have any joy of football. In the Premier League doesn't give me any joy. I mean, yeah, it's nice to be in it, but when you're getting slapped every week by Stoke and Southampton, we're cannon fodder for these teams, like even Burnley. So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom, because maybe next year, whatever division we're in, probably the Championship, maybe we might win a few games.
And it's such a bizarre situation, because I see it all the time, you know. And we throw the questions out and we get a great response. and it seems to be such a split in opinion, and I think you can kind of boil these two opinions down into two basic camps. Number one, it financially shags us basically, and we're absolutely screwed, and it's going to take us a while to actually recover, to actually become a force that could get into the Premiership again and actually make a good go of it, which I do get. And then, on the other hand, the other part of my brain and my heart also agrees with what Tom says. I don't really care about the Premiership. I would just love it if we could win something like half of our games, if that, not even that. But if we could put more than five, wins together in the space of a ridiculously low sum of games, in all honesty, if we go above a 24% win ratio, whatever we're on, I think I would love that. I really do. And like you say, it's always a great day out down to the likes of Ipswich and Burton and Rotherham and everywhere in between. It'd be a canny lads day.
We can mug off some Championship team, just giving it biggin. Going to places. Remember, going to places like Colchester, just giving it biggin. Just yeah. We're mint, lads. We're mint. Do one. We'll smash you 2-0.
I appreciate that it'll be better down in the Championship, but if I take it back to a serious note, I just don't want to be there. I don't want to be a Championship club. I think
come
this
on,
club's
Gav. Burton away, mate.
No,
come on, Burton.
No thanks. It's going to make my job an absolute nightmare running this frigging site. You know what I mean? Trying to get lads to cover games when they're not there and stuff. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. But yeah. I think it's inevitable. I do think that you can only do what we've done for so long, and then it comes to a head, doesn't it? And although Sunderland seem to pull the rabbit out the hat year on year, you can't do that all the time. Eventually it's going to catch up to you and we're going to get relegated. And really this season we're kind of pinning my hopes on Kirchhoff coming back and being the player he was last season, and Catamol having some sort of meaningful impact in the running when he's back. And we're kind of pinning my hopes on Defoe not getting injured. We're pinning our hopes on Ndong continuing to improve. We're pinning our hopes on Gilabodji coming back and not being a total catastrophe every time he steps on the pitch. We've got so many things going against us this year that it just feels like this is our year to drop. And I know people will be listening to this now, and we'll get comments from people saying that we've been a bit negative, or I know you've tried. I know you haven't, but there'll be people listening to me thinking I'm being negative. But at the same time, I just think that we kind of have to prime ourselves for what's coming. I'm not saying the players have to, because obviously that's just unacceptable. We watch them every week, and if their levels drop, we know it straight away and we jump all over it. So for us to sit here and say, it's all right, get relegated, we can't give up either as fans. We've got to at least hold out some hope that David Moyes isn't a total dud and the players that he's brought in are actually going to do something for us. And I think when I seen a table, I don't know what it stands at now, but I seen a points table before the game on Saturday. It was the total points this season after 25 games in comparison to the total points last season after 25 games. And before Saturday, we were actually a point worse off than we were at this point last year, which was, when I seen it, I was completely shocked, because I thought, hold on, first 10 games, we've not picked up a win. And then from then on, it just seems to have been even worse. I think we've lost 17 games this season, 18 games. So for us to even be a point worse off now than we were last year just seems a complete miracle to me.
I mean, the Premier League is not, that people say it's the best league in the world. I think it's the most entertaining league in the world, but mainly because teams are so inconsistent and so defensively shoddy that you get quite a lot of goals and a lot of chances. It's not, I mean, if you watch Italian football, it's a lot more organised, a lot more regimented. And it shows in the Premier League table, because we're only 3 points from safety. Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely mad, considering how terrible we are, that we're only 3 points from safety. It's 12 games left, and we've got 19 points, and we're still thinking, hang on, maybe we could stay up here.
It is, and sorry,
I think this season you could see someone stay in the Premier League on less than 35 points, 32, 33 points might be enough to keep you up, just because of how terrible the bottom 7 teams are.
Yeah. Haven't we stayed up on less before?
Oh, we stayed up on less than 40 loads. I think it's 35, 36 and stuff. Yeah. But I mean, this season it could be. I think it could be 32, 33 points, and on goal difference you could stay up.
Yeah.
It's that bad down there.
That's literally mental.
It is, and this leads us nicely into the point that if you watch the NBCSN documentary, the local priest who was talking about what it meant to be, I think it's Father Mark Linden-Smith, he was talking about what it meant to be a Sunderland fan and the fact that we always wait till Easter and the reincarnation of Jesus reflects Sunderland. Whether you're into that, I don't know, up to you basically. But it's interesting that normally we tend to turn our season around on its head against a big team, and we've got City next weekend. We're at home to them. We've seen some memorable games. I remember Mancini saying he wishes he just didn't have to come to Sunderland to play that game. There was a span of time that we went on about an incredible run whereby we beat City. And I just want to know to the lads, is this the game that potentially spins our season? We've enjoyed ourselves against City in the past. Tom, what do you think, mate? Is this going to be the game that reinvigorates us?
No, of course not. God, they're one of the best teams in Europe. Of course not. When you were saying about the NBC documentary, I watched that, and it was, as someone who's not from Sunderland, they just epitomise everything I love about Sunderland, like the area, the seafront, and yeah, the priest went on to a lot of tangents about religion and football and all that. But that documentary made me think that's how much I love Sunderland, no matter how rubbish we are, and no matter how far I have to travel just to go to a home game. It's just, that's why I like going to it. But going back to the match next week, yeah, don't bother. We're going to get hammered. And everyone's going to see it on Sky Sports, so that'll be quite nice. We've had a few good results against City, but the past two times we've come to the Stadium of Light, they've absolutely smashed us. So yeah, don't hold that any hope.
Wait, lads, I'm just going to go and find the nearest bridge and chuck myself off because.
Hey, I did something quite nice there about Sunderland. How much I loved it.
Come on, Callum, mate. Give us a ray of hope somewhere, will you?
Maybe they'll rest players. I don't know. I mean, even if they rest players, let's be honest, they're still going to bring in like internationals who, are amazing. But I mean, again, they've been hit and miss and at times this season. But like Tom said, I mean, they are a cut above, and we'll just, I think the best we can hope for is a 0-0 and just like keep them at bay, and like the Tottenham game, maybe give ourselves a little bit of a boost. I mean, this season we tend to do decent performances against big teams. We tend to sort of enjoy being under the cosh rather than having to come out and actually play and beat a team around us. But I mean, we've beaten the likes of Hull and that at home, but I think we do tend to look a bit more organised, a bit more of a decent unit against the bigger teams. So who knows? Maybe we'll have a decent, solid performance and keep them at bay. But the likelihood of us getting a chance, is quite low. But you never know. John Stones might do one of his customary Cruyff turns on the edge of his own box or something like that, and give Defoe a little bit of a sight of goal. So you never know. I mean, it's football, Sunderland. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But like Tom said, I wouldn't hold your breath.
Sunderland do epitomise that old cliche of football's a funny old game. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 defeat next week, and I want to hear what the lads have to say in a second. But I'm going to say 2-1 defeat, but the performance will be good enough to drive us on to better things in the future. Walshy, what do you think, mate? What's the score going to be?
You just predicted the worst outcome ever. It's like that 2-1 defeat, but yeah, we played really well.
It's done us well in the past. It's done us well in the past.
Gillabodgy high-fiving everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, lads. Yeah, good one. 2-0 down. Yeah, get that one goal back, a bit of confidence booster. I think it'll be probably 2-0 again, like you said. A bit of graft and all that, but we still get beat. So, or the worst would be if we play really well, then get suckered in the last minute, which would be proper Sunderland.
Yeah, it would be. Callum, what do you think, mate?
I think it'll probably be, I'd say probably 3-0.
Sunderland?
I'll probably say 3-0 City. 3-0 City, definitely.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Gav, what do you think, mate?
I'm with Callum. I think we're going to get tortured. I just Aguero against us is just going to have a field day like he always seems to have, and I don't know. I'm not hopeful. What I want to see is if we're going to get beat. I mean, nobody likes getting beat, but when we lost to City last season on the game after the January transfer window, and we got beat 1-0, but we were all up a height because Kone looked fantastic, and he sent Toure chewing grass, didn't he? And then we had Kirchhoff strolling around, putting in the best performance of a midfielder that we'd seen all season. And then, Kazri looked at an outlook, and his corners were dangerous. And we had a lot of hope after that game, even though we'd lost. We felt like we deserved something more from it. If we can give that kind of performance where we don't get trolleyed, but we actually show, like I said at the top of the show, I said that I don't like getting beat, but if we're going to get beat off these big teams, we have to compete. We have to show that we're up for a fight at least, like Burnley do every week. We have to do that now. And if we don't start showing it, writing's on the wall, and we're bottom of the league. We need points. It doesn't matter who we play, whether City are one of the best teams in Europe or not. It's a cliche, but every game has to be a cup final from now until the end of the season. And this is number one for me. I think you get a good result out of this, or a positive performance, and it could really swing around the optimism within the fan base, because I think, like most people, have kind of resigned to the fact that we're going down, and we need something to change that.
Mm-hmm. Have we got a massive gap? We've got a massive gap after this game as well, don't we? Because that Middlesbrough game got cancelled.
Yes,
very true.
We've got another 2-week gap. So it's like, maybe we could go to New York again.
Off to New York, lads.
we'll all go to New York.
We've got Man City at home, then we've got a 2-week gap. Well, it's not even quite a 2-week gap, because Man City's on, I think it's on Sundays or on Monday. It's been moved, hasn't it? So then we've got Burnley on the 18th of March at home. Then we're away to Watford, and then we've got Leicester away too. So really, after the City game, you've got 3 games there. You want to be targeting points in all of them. So it kind of reinforces the point I've made, that a massive performance, regardless of result, really sets us up for that run, because Burnley at home, although they're doing well, they're not a good away team. I wasn't impressed with them at Stadium of Light in the Cup, although they took us back to their place. I wasn't impressed at all. So, we're trying to be optimistic. There are games where, against teams around us, Burnley, Leicester, Watford to an extent aren't a great side. We've still got Bournemouth at home. We're away to Hull towards the end of the season, and we've got Swansea, who may well be safe by the time we play them. So, there are games there where we have to look and go, we really need to win that game. We really need to win that game. I think the Man City game is more of a, can we perform? Can we show that we've got the bottle in the fight to get through this? Because, like I've already said, we have a canny run of games after this, which could really will define our season, because if we don't take at least 2 wins from those 3, you kind of, we're down by that point in my eyes.
Agreed, totally agreed, mate. I think cathartic either way after this weekend coming up. I also think if it's a big enough drubbing, serious questions are going to fall on Moyes. Wouldn't be surprised to see something happen with regards to his position. Maybe he gets the dreaded vote of confidence if it's significantly bad against City this weekend. But we can only hold out in hope, as the lads have quite nicely put across. That has been episode 23, ladies and gents. I hope you've enjoyed the banter between the lads. Please come back next week after we either rock up drunk and hour the moon that we've stuck one over Man City again, or we come crying once more, handkerchiefs in hands. Either way, we hope to see you there. This is the Roker Report, signing off.